This season, Instacart has your back to school. As in, they've got your back to school lunch favorites, like snack packs and fresh fruit. And they've got your back to school supplies, like backpacks, binders, and pencils. And they've got your back when your kid casually tells you they have a huge school project due tomorrow. Let's face it, we were all that kid. So first call your parents to say I'm sorry, and then download the Instacart app to get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes all school year long. Get a $0 delivery fee for your first 3 orders while supplies last. Minimum $10 per order. Additional terms apply.
Getting the smile and confidence you've been dreaming about, all from the comfort of your home, isn't a total mystery with Byte clear aligners. Just don't be surprised if all your friends start asking, "What's your secret?" Begin by ordering your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95. Byte clear aligners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces, plus they offer flexible financing, accept eligible insurance, and you can pay with your HSA FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
Better not have no plans tonight.
Movie time and it's feeling right.
You're looking for a love that lasts. You'll find it at Romancing the Podcast. Ooh, ooh, baby, you had me at hello. Ooh, I love you.
I know.
Ooh, ooh, baby, you're the wind beneath my wings. I'll have what she's having.
Recording Mr. and Mrs. Smiths.
The best part of waking up is adultery in your cup. Wasn't this the movie that broke up Brad and Rachel?
Brad and Jennifer Aniston. I believe so. I think we'll talk about it a little bit in Fun Facts.
Okay.
Thank you for tuning into Romancing the Pod. You had us at hello. I'm Paige Wesley.
And I'm Todd Schlosser. And this week I made you all watch
Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
So, Paige, are you just never going to set up your mic stand?
Oh, no. It literally has only been like 2 days. I have had maybe 8 hours of sleep across the 2 days since I have been back.
Yeah.
So probably later tonight, I will set this up so that I don't have to hold it again tomorrow, because I had forgotten how heavy they get.
They do. Yeah. Paige, first off, sorry to put you on the spot like that. It was just very funny, and I was waiting until we hit record to ask you.
That's fine.
But I think maybe we should go ahead and apologize for last week's episode, because the late night energy was strong with that one.
Oh, was it?
It was bonkers, Paige. An insane edit.
It was a fun movie, though.
It was so fun. I loved it. You're welcome. Paige, how did you feel about Mr. and Mrs. Smith from 2005?
So I saw this in theaters.
So did I.
And I remembered at the time being like, this seems too long. And then today, as I was watching it, I was like, this is paced bad, because there's like a very, very paint by numbers way that this should be paced from a screenwriting perspective.
Yeah.
Where if you're going for an action movie, which is typically about 90 minutes long, your first 30 is the setup. Your second 30 is the 48 hours and they're supposed to kill each other. The last 30 is them working together to resolve it. And this movie is all out of whack, where they don't quite get to that 48 hours until almost 45, 50 minutes in. And then one of the fight scenes alone takes about 12 to 15 minutes, which I remembered from seeing it in the theaters that I was like, this fight scene is going on forever. And then we don't come back around to them fighting together and figuring it out until 20 minutes before the end of the movie. And none of it's really explained. It is just kind of slapdash together with whatever we could manage to film. And I think a huge part of that is they do have chemistry. Absolutely. Not going to deny it. And I think they wanted to favor that chemistry more than focusing on kind of making a tighter story that moves faster.
I think there's a better way to do that, because I think you're right. The pacing does seem off to me.
It drags like crazy, yeah.
Although, I'll be honest with you, when I saw this in the theaters, it was like perfect for like where I was at in life.
Sure.
And that is like, college Todd. And I was like, Angelina Jolie and guns. This seems great.
Oh, everyone in this movie looks amazing.
Yes.
And I love Angelina Jolie in an action movie. I maintain that the Tomb Raider movies are good, and I will not hear any to the contrast.
Oh, where she's Tomb Raider?
Yes.
Or Lara Croft? Yeah, I agree.
It's fucking awesome.
They're great. They're a very different vibe than the more recent ones, which I prefer, but they're still good movies.
I love them.
And it's not like they require her to act much, so she's like perfect for them.
She's not a bad actress. Like, she's fine. She's good.
In this movie, I feel like she's very one note because that's her character until the very last scene. And in that very last scene, I even said to Natalie, I was like, man, this is the first time I'm like, damn, she's like really acting. Because the rest of the movie, she's supposed to come off as like this like one note, buttoned up, type A, very like uptight housewife who's also a spy or whatever.
As I was watching that last one, I was like, oh, they fucking already.
They had just got done. Like, that's the kind of chemistry they have in that scene.
Yeah, no, I mean it literally. Like, they came out of their trailers or something that day and had already begun.
Yeah.
Because as you brought up kind of before we started recording, this famously is allegedly, big quotations, allegedly, the movie that broke up Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston and got Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt together, who are now going through some brutal divorce and custody proceedings that we maybe won't talk about because it's kind of a downer.
I honestly don't know about it, so I can't talk about it, but I'm sure it's a downer. And actually, I do know some things, and the things I know aren't great.
They're not great. Not great.
Yeah, but I think it's time that we all, as a world, come together and just allow Vince Vaughn to be himself. Like, why do we give him a character name in any movie when he's just doing what he does so well and he's like crushing it? But like, I just want to live in like the Vince Vaughn expanded universe where he just has the coolest fucking friends, you know?
Yeah, he's the same guy in every movie.
Yes.
In fact, something in this actually kind of bothered me because there was literally almost a handful of identical gags from Wedding Crashers.
Yeah, I noticed that too. The yelling at mom, who's like not even there. There isn't a mom character really.
There's just a voiceover.
Yes.
And I was like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
And that was around the same time too. That was only a couple years later. And so I was kind of like, what? But anyway, they don't give him a ton to do. He's literally just there to make comments, but he's only in like 3 or 4 scenes.
I know, but every time he's there, like he is doing what he does so well. Like I love him in this movie.
He's all right.
I don't not want him to be there. I just think that it's okay that we acknowledge that this is the only thing Hollywood asks him to do, really.
Yeah.
And he crushes it. But like, I don't want to call him Eddie when we all know it's Vince Vaughn being Vince Vaughn.
He's Vince Vaughn in my notes the entire time.
Yes.
Here's what I will say. There is nothing different here from any of the other movies we've seen. And here's what I would have liked is for him to play Vince Vaughn, like the normal Vince Vaughn, just like he does for most of the movie. But then when they come to him in the diner to find out that he orchestrated the hit and for him to be the villain, that's what I would have fucking killed for. And that would have been a much more dynamic beat in the script, but instead we get some nonsense that makes no sense.
I mean, that would have been, you're right. That would have been a crazy turn and I would have loved it. But they don't do anything like that. They don't do anything that brave. In a movie that kills more FBI agents than the Oklahoma City bombing, they wouldn't do something that brave, Paige.
Not at
and
all.
Everyone's just sort of fine with it. Like, our heroes murder FBI agents.
Yes.
And we're just like, cool. I mean, I guess whatever. That's fine. I also think this can't be the first time 2 people have tried to use Adam Brody to spice up their love life, so I get it.
I mean, fair.
Sometimes you gotta kill the FBI to make that happen.
Sometimes you do.
Listen, my wife and I noticed you from across this safe house.
Yeah.
And we love your vibe.
Yeah, here at Quantico, the upside down pineapple means,
Hey, while she's doing you and I'm in this chair, sing Through the Trees.
through the trees.
It's a very specific Jennifer's body cuck joke. You're welcome.
I love it.
That was a joke just for Paige, and I don't even care about it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Here's what I have a controversial opinion about this movie, having watched it again. And I, spoiler, hadn't watched it since I saw it in the theaters. Because I saw it in the theaters, was slightly underwhelmed, and then had to watch it today. I do love the concept of a spy having to live a normal life and being kind of undercover and all of that. I think the better version of that is the movie Nobody. I don't know if you've seen that. It's not really a rom-com, but it is Bob Odenkirk as seemingly just like a normal dad who just turns out to be fucking Jason Bourne levels of deadly.
Yeah, it's like if BTK was a good guy.
Yes, it's so fucking fun. It is a way better and it's like a tight 90 minutes. It understands what it is. And here's the thing in this movie, the action scenes, they're long, but they're not necessarily good. In this movie, they're shot too close. You don't have great establishing shots. They do the same beats over and over again, so it kind of gets boring.
I literally said we're too close when the camera was right up on him in their IKEA battle scene.
Yes, we're way too close.
They're like both double gunning it. They both have various different double guns, but they've got double guns.
I mean, they're just doing fun gun kata, and it's so they can look each other in the eyes as they shoot people, which the better version of that is Shoot 'Em Up with Clive Owen, where he and Monica Bellucci are having full penetrative sex while he's shooting people.
Paige, I was upset you interrupted me until you said full penetrative sex, and then I was
You're welcome.
Really on board for what you were saying. But like they're like doing those double gun things, and we're seeing like their elbows up to their face. Like we should see all of the guns.
Right.
Like that's the scene.
Right.
You're too close anyway. I mean, I know why they do that, and I think there is value in pushing in like that so you can see their eyes a lot better.
Sure.
But like you gotta establish the guns first, please. Because that's such a cool shot you're not giving us.
Yeah.
It's full like comic book panel.
Yes.
Like them back to back.
Yes.
Shooting the FBI. Or actually, I think at this point, or at that point, it's
whoever it is, it's just any assassin are available.
Yes, I think it's everyone, right? Because they put a bounty on both of their heads or whatever. So like it's everybody, but like they're not giving us that comic book panel at all.
No.
And I needed it. I needed it, Paige.
I needed that, or I needed them to be having full penetrative sex while it was happening.
You know your famous nickname, Paige. Give me more blood and titties, Wesley.
Give me more blood and titties. Yeah, and it's not. Yeah, in that scene, absolutely, they're too close. For me, it's the house where they're destroying this whole fucking house, and I'm like, how many mirrors are they going to smash into? How many mirrors does this house have? How many glasses are they going to break? How many walls are they going to shoot through? Because we've been watching them do it for 15 minutes. Like, get a little more inventive. They're fucking spies, or whatever. They're fucking assassins.
They're assassins, which is weird.
Yeah.
Like, this movie really wants me to, really hope that these two ruthless, cold-blooded killers will end up together.
Sure.
And, they're gonna fucking figure it out. Maybe they'll even start their own assassination/murder for hire business together and operate it like a couple.
Right.
Wouldn't that be great if these two people went on committing senseless murders now in love?
Now in love.
But you know what I love about that? I do want them to do that at the end of this movie because it's such a heightened reality.
Right.
It feels like a cartoon, but like a live action cartoon. Because the premise is almost silly. Like it's really just for the metaphor.
Yes.
And they amp it up and turn it into an action movie.
Right.
So the guys will come see a movie about how maybe you do need to communicate with your partner, and they'll bake that metaphor into a movie that a guy would be like, hey, we should go see Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe you guys have more in common than you thought. And there's a reason you fell in love in the first place. Of course. Here's what I need is I need this directed by the guy who did John Wick. That's what I need. That guy knows how to direct the fuck out of some action scenes.
I was going to say, yeah, those are some iconic action scenes. So yeah.
And we'd be at 90 minutes at that point. I need half an hour out of this and easily trimmable just from the slow motion circular camera scenes. I need that, and I need somebody with more of an action bent directing some of those scenes. Even the car scene with the minivan, I think is pretty good, but you've got a minivan and you're mainly just shooting at people. It's not until he pulls that guy from one door to the other that I'm like, that's hilarious.
Yes.
Great. And there's a scene where they open the back and they're shooting at people and he's having to move the seats in the minivan and they're falling out. And I was like, throw it through the car.
Or at them at least.
At them. Just toss the seat out the back. There's so many things that I'm like, why are we still just shooting at people that are bullet sponges?
Well, because no one can shoot for shit, which I think is very common in action movies, so I'm not mad at it, so whatever. But
sure.
I do like that scene because it does seem like they have no idea how the fuck to fight in a van.
No.
And they're doing their fucking best, and it's a very chaotic situation. They keep opening the back of the van, which is probably the dumbest thing to do because you could shoot through the window and then, I mean, I realize the bullet would probably still go through, but it would slow down significantly if it shot through the actual car part,
Right.
not the window part.
Right.
So you're just getting the car part out of the way. So the only thing between you and their bullet is air. That's a bad move, buddy.
Yeah, well, not only that, they're like, they're bulletproof. And I'm like, you know what's not bulletproof? The fucking tires. But it takes them 7 minutes of screen time to shoot at the fucking tires.
Well, for her to shoot at the tire, she takes out 2 like right back to back after he struggled
Immediately.
for 15 minutes
Yes.
to shoot them. And Paige, I don't think that that's a sentiment that women aren't going to feel like they understand on some level. And I'm shocked to hear you say that you didn't enjoy the metaphor, but whatever.
No, I did. I did enjoy. Now, what I was waiting for was him after to be like, you always underestimate me. And she's just like, you never listen to my directions. Like, we needed that. And that wasn't there. Because, like, there are many times where they do things and I'm like, this serves the marriage metaphor and they don't call it out. And you're like, I know that we're showing, not telling, but how am I supposed to pay attention to this in 15 minutes of shooting the same shot from different angles? Like, guys,
Yeah.
come on.
When I first saw this, I would never have said there was too much action. But today, there's too much action for me.
Yes.
I did get bored at points because of it. I do think that and I think this sort of ties into your pacing issue, Paige. At least this may have fixed the pacing issue for me. They need to decide to be together way sooner.
Yes.
And then it's them taking down both of the agencies.
Yes.
And we get more about both of their agencies and then who's at the top of it and then them both taking them out in cool, unique ways. Because then we get a lot more of the great moments of chemistry that they do actually have.
Yes.
And they could go on like multiple missions together or setting up very covert ways to get them into the same location so they can kill them at once in one big scene. Whatever. I just need all of that longer, I should say.
20 minutes sooner. Yeah.
Because I want them fighting for them to be together as a couple. I think metaphorically, I even like it better because they decide pretty early on that like, no, I want to be with you. Cool. I want to be with you. Let's fight for it. And then they do, instead of that being like the last 5 pages of the novel, right?
It's like the last 5 pages. I actually need it on both sides. I need them to figure each other out faster, that they're killers faster, and I need them to decide to be together faster.
Yeah.
Because them not finding out that the other is also an assassin until almost an hour into the movie. It's like 45, 50 minutes. That's way too long. That's 20 minutes too long. At minute 25 to 30 max is when we should find that out.
That's a first act reveal, for sure.
It's a first act reveal.
Yeah.
There's a lot to easily cut. Yeah, so that is a first act reveal. It's not early in the first act. It's the end of your first act. It's your inciting incident.
Yeah.
You know?
It's when John Wick's dog dies.
Well, no, that's way too early because John Wick's dog dies in like the first couple scenes.
Fair.
It's page 25 to 27.
Yeah.
But again, that in a 90-minute movie, we lose 30 minutes and it's about 20 minutes from the front and 10 minutes from the back. And that's where we would kind of feel it.
I do love like the whole metaphor of the movie.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think it's cool that like they tricked idiots like me into going to see a movie about like, maybe I should communicate with my partner better. And maybe like, we should like still date each other after all these years and like really be vulnerable and honest and all that shit. They like convinced a bunch of idiots like me to go because they gave Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie guns.
Yeah.
But I do love that Brad Pitt's pretty much doing his best Robert Redford impression this whole movie. I sort of like him in it, but he's got a real Robert Redford vibe to him in this movie, like more than I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, this is before we get what I will call like stoner era Brad Pitt. And I don't know if that's the real reason, but at a certain point, Brad Pitt took on a very like, hey man, I'm just here kind of vibe in most movies. And it's after this point. Like if you look at like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he's that way. And I feel like we kind of felt it that way last week.
Yeah.
In Lost City, this kind of like long hair, beachy vibe. And here he's like, I'm Brad Pitt and I'm a fucking action star and I'm kind of a smart ass and you're going to do what I say. And I'm like, oof. Yeah, early 2000s Brad Pitt. I probably would do what you say, and then I'd probably regret it 20 years later. But you know what? We don't need to go into it.
This movie has a lot of the same beats that Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. It has a lot of the same beats as that movie. So, like, maybe that's why I saw, like, him as Robert Redford in this movie.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But now I sort of want a Mr. and Mr. Smith with, like, Robert Redford and the other guy from that, but in this movie.
Yeah.
Who was that? Paul Newman. It was Paul Newman.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, hey. I'd watch it. I mean, this did make me want to watch the TV series, which I heard is very good. And so I think maybe that'll be one of those things that I pop on my list because I have a million things to watch. But I do want to see the TV series now.
From what I understand, the premise of it is a little bit different.
Yeah, but I think a different premise kind of works better. I think in the TV series, they know about each other.
I think they are just secret agents that go undercover as a married couple. That's like the premise. That's the Mr. and Mrs. Smith of it all.
Yeah, but that kind of works for me too. I'm okay with it being kind of different.
That also leads to a more serious than silly.
Sure.
Because I think this movie is large, and I don't mean this as a negative thing. Like, I like that it's silly, but it's pretty campy. Like, there's some silly moments in this movie.
Yeah, and I honestly think that a tighter edit would serve that campiness.
Yeah, it would.
I think a faster pace and a tighter edit would make this funnier even.
It definitely would. But maybe we should just go through this movie scene by scene.
All right, so we open on them in marriage counseling, and they're not doing great. They're not having sex. They're rating their marriage on a scale of 1 to 10 and giving it an 8, but not really thoughtfully. And they're like, well, think back to the time you first met. Cut to 5 to 6 years ago in Bogota, Colombia, during some sort of political uprising.
Yeah, first off, Bogota is a full-ass city. It is not a jungle city that's like there's 12 buildings.
There's not chickens at the airport, as we saw in what was it, Romancing the Stone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, Bogota's a real-ass city, guys.
Yeah.
Also, if you don't remember how many years you've been married to your other person, that's a red flag for me. A red flag that means, A, he's undercover and this is a cover marriage and he doesn't know her that well, or she's his beard.
There's a third option, and that's that you got married right before the pandemic happened and those 3 years are a blur. Because sometimes you're like, it's our 5th anniversary. Is it 5? How many years were we stuck inside?
That's fair.
You know, and if you count it, you're like, yeah, 5. But like, there's some time where you're like, 2021 to 2023, kind of a blur.
I mean, yeah, but like, it's positioned like Brad Pitt has to take off his wedding ring, check the engraving to know what year he got married. Like, that's true. That's like the vibe of Brad Pitt. Like, if you don't care that much about when you married your wife,
right,
that's a red flag about something. I don't know, like.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like, I know the year, but my math is bad. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I understand.
Where it's like 1924.
Yeah. If I had asked you what year you got married, you'd get it right. If I asked you how many years you've been married, that's actually not a do I know anything about my marriage stuff. That's like a math problem that I cannot do.
I cannot do.
Yeah.
I cannot do. I'll be like, I don't know. It only feels like about 2 years.
I refuse your call to adventure, Lady Math. You can seed me down the road, my friend.
Yeah, no, because we're coming up on 5 years. It don't feel like 5 years. It does not feel like it's been that long. It feels like last year that we got married. But hey, maybe that's because we've been having so much fun the whole time.
That's what I was about to say, Paige.
We've been having a good time, staying inside, wearing masks and shit. Anyway, so they're not having a good time. But we go back to the day they met in Bogota. And this is what I thought was interesting. The Barracuda, someone named the Barracuda, has been assassinated. We don't really get any more context on who that is. We don't really need it. But they're like, we're looking for tourists traveling alone, which, like, needle in a haystack, guys.
Well, 2 needles in a haystack because there are only 2 visitors to this hotel and they're both traveling alone. They're also both the most attractive people in the movie.
Clearly, and they are both armed. And I, in watching this, I was like, I thought they didn't know that they were assassins, because he looks at her and the camera almost follows his gaze and sees a knife on her. And the fact that he doesn't like, hey, maybe maybe I was here for the. There's no connection, apparently, but the camera kind of tricks you.
Paige, I think you're zoomed in too closely on this one scene. If they're both the only 2 Americans in a city where the room service people have fled for their safety,
yes,
the only reason they are there is like CIA-related reason. Like they may not know that they are just hit people for hire, but they have to know they're there for like nefarious-ish reasons.
I like nefarious.
Thank you.
Nefarious reasons. Yes. And I, for a hot second, was like, am I completely remembering this movie wrong? And they've known the whole time? Because they meet, they pretend to be married. They have this like super sexy romantic weekend, basically, of like surviving an uprising.
Yeah, there's nothing sexier than overthrowing a democratically elected republic. I actually don't know what's happening in this movie, but like if that's a CIA thing, yeah, that's probably what they were doing.
I mean, them, when they're sitting in the rain drinking out of that bottle and she's on his lap, I was like, this is the hottest thing I've ever fucking seen. This is great. But then we pop back to New York and they seemingly don't know it all, even though all the signs are there.
Oh, yeah. They literally came back from a mission they like hooked up on.
Right.
They were both there on a mission page.
I know. And I know they're telling the audience that, but like there are so many clues that the characters should also know it. But here's the kicker, though, why the pacing becomes such a problem. Because the audience knows from square one.
Yeah.
We know.
The whole time.
The whole time that they were both there. So the longer we're waiting for them to find out, the longer it feels.
Yeah.
So like they come home, they're talking to their respective friends, also coworkers. So he's talking to Vince Vaughn about like, we've only known each other 6 weeks, but I love her. And then she's talking to Kerry Washington, woefully underused in this movie. There's so many people in the background of this movie. It is madness.
There's so many famous women in her staff,
Yes.
right? Like there's, I think 4 or 5 of them went on to be famous.
DA Alex Cabot. Yeah. Yes. Stephanie March went on to Law and Order. And then the other girl I don't remember went on to House. And then Kerry Washington is there. And then there's a handful of other ones that are like just in the background that you see for a second or two.
Yeah, Ari Gold's wife is in it.
Yes.
I think it's Perry Reeves is her name. Like, but like there's so many like working stable actresses that you recognize just in the background of her team.
Yes, which is almost distracting watching it now, which is kind of funny.
It is. And Keith David is, quote, father, who's like the head of her organization.
Which we only see him once.
Oh, I guess we do see him one time. But
we see him in the reflection of a television.
Yeah.
Which also, if you reveal that and then you don't touch it again until the last 20 minutes of the movie, because essentially at that point I was like, wait, so if he put out the hit and if he knew that like I'm doing the math while watching the movie and then later they're like, yeah, they both wanted to kill you. I was like, yeah, clearly, because otherwise why would Keith David have been there at all? Like,
right?
Yeah. Anyway, we cut to them 5 or 6 years later in their house in the Pasadena Hills. They are kind of boring and like, okay, so I didn't like Dr. Wexler, but it was like 4 p.m. across town, rush hour, dinner's at 7, just very perfunctory, going through the motions.
I mean, that was, I think, them setting up going to therapy, right? Like, it was like, okay,
Yes.
I mean, I don't really like traveling across town. It's very clear there's like, they are like married in name only or whatever.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
it's very much a cover for both of them at this point. And I do think that the flashback sets up that it like was a love-based relationship first.
Yeah, and this, I mean, hey, as someone coming up on their 5th anniversary, that's a very quick amount of time to be very disillusioned.
Right? It does seem very fast.
We did know each other for much longer than 6 weeks before we got married, though.
Well, then there you go.
Yeah, because I'm like, if you count up the time that we knew each other before, we're at like 8 years and we're still not this. This is wild.
Right? Yeah.
Anyway, we cut to a big old office building where Adam Brody is trying to go into the elevator to see the boss.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, he watches you on closed circuit camera and we give you this envelope. He opens it. We don't see the picture that he pulls out.
We do not. We do eventually, though.
We do eventually. We just know that it is a photograph. And in like the reflection of the camera, we see Keith David and we hear Keith David's unmistakable, very, very awesome voice.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we cut back to the house and she's in the kitchen cooking, she being Angelina Jolie. Brad Pitt pulls up and she's like, hey, new curtains, what do you think? And there was a struggle over the material, but I won. What I really need is a quick cut back
I know.
to her fighting and ruining the previous curtains.
Yes.
With somebody, like killing somebody in the house or something like that.
Or literally killing someone with their curtains, and then those are their curtains that she stole after she killed them with them.
Yes, something.
Which I realize would be insane, but this movie's just a cartoon. So, like, you could get away with, like, a 30 Rock style cutaway to that, and then showing them on these windows, you know?
I would frankly prefer it
be
because
great.
then we are really playing in the camp of this world as opposed to them talking around the curtains and like, well, I thought we were going to wait and we weren't going to do the curtains. And I'm like, if you showed me that she had to replace the curtains because she shot someone, there was brains all over them, or she cut through them during a fight, that's really funny to me because that's an element of her having to keep up the facade that's very, very mundane seeming, but in reality, very, very difficult. And they're implying as much. So just show us.
Yeah.
Yeah. We cut to, he says, oh, the gardener left the lawnmower outside. I got to put it back in the tool shed. And we will eventually find out that his tool shed is kind of like his home base. We'll see it in just a bit.
Yeah. Which, like, you also couldn't have built that. Like, they have weapons stashed in places that would have taken days to install.
Yes.
So, like,
I think they were doing it while each other were on missions.
I guess, yeah, maybe. If you have, like, unlimited funds and you could hire 50 people in one day and, like, extreme home makeover it, you could make that work.
I think so.
But I do then want a, like, I'll just say exhibit hosted Ty Pennington produced I'm Gonna Pimp Your House Full of Guns.
Ooh,
and it's just like extreme home makeover, but for places you can hide your weapons. And then I'm here for it.
Okay. How has this not happened? They had the like one on Netflix with the lady that built sex closets. And like, how are they not doing it for gun nuts? Did you not watch the sex closet lady? Because that show was fascinating.
Paige, I get why you'd ask me and be surprised that my answer is no, but I have not seen that.
So it's a reality show where a seemingly very prim and proper British lady comes in and interviews people about their particular fetishes. And then she's like, great, we're going to design this whole thing for you. And then it's basically just a design show, except it's for sex dungeons. And then at the end, they do the same reveal of like, we took nude photos of you and had them superimposed into the wallpaper. And then this chair allows you to have a greater area of entry next to this giant cross on the wall. Like, it's hysterical. It was one of the funniest things I've ever watched. And like, no kink shame. I appreciate that these people have that much money to invest into their kinkery. There's one where they have kids, so they build a secret door so that the kids can't find it and get in.
Is it through a wardrobe? Is Mr. Tumnus there? Paige, I am not going to watch
Todd,
a show.
Yes.
What?
Todd, yes.
Baby, put on the goat legs.
I'm telling you.
Put on the goat legs. I can't, Paige, I cannot. Please. I cannot watch a TV show where at any point a man might look at his wife and be like, I can't wait to rail you in this room. Like, I don't want to see that on screen.
They don't say that because it's still a television show. So they're like, I'm very excited about what we could do later. Like, that's all they're going to say.
That's what that means. I'm out. I am out.
But Todd, they're like, you know how they like set and stage a room where like, if you're watching Chip and Joanna, she's like, moving a lamp or like putting a crock full of spoons in the kitchen. In this one, they're like arranging a setting of dildos on a dresser. It's so funny. It's so funny how serious they take it. And yet you'll watch it and be like, I need to get me one of them chairs. Like, I'm dead ass serious.
That's how I felt watching the stationary bike episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Okay, so they're very like modern looking chairs, but they're meant to like enable different positions and stuff, and they put one in almost every room.
Paige, I'm not going to watch I'm not going to watch it.
It's only 6 episodes. You're going to love it. Anyway, we need one for gun nuts. Or not. There's a gun problem in this country.
There definitely is a gun problem in this country, yeah.
I mean, unless someone was like, and here are all the safes that you could lock up if you were being a responsible gun owner. The ammunition goes over here. The guns go over here. Your kids don't know the codes or whatever.
Paige, let me just say this. A sex dungeon's never shot up a school, all right?
That's true.
All right, cut that. For sure, cut that joke, babe.
Keep that in.
No.
Keep that in. Keep it in. You're right. It's a healthy outlet. Anyway, we get more of their marriage being not so great, where she's like reading and the lights are on and like he's like, I love my wife, but sometimes I want to kill her. And we're cutting between the marriage counseling and everything.
Yeah.
But they both come back to the marriage counselor alone. He's like, I'm frustrated. I don't understand what's going on. And I love her, but like, I can't stand her sometimes. And she's like, our whole relationship fills up with everything we don't say. And he's like, what don't you say? Spoiler that you're both assassins. Like, you're lying the whole time.
I know. Anything resembling the truth. That's what you don't say.
That's what you don't say. I do love that his like role that he's playing is that he's always looking at new cars and he's just like, oh, 0 APR finance.
Yeah.
It's just like the GMC Tacoma looks nice.
Well, that's his version of being his neighbor Bob, I think.
Yes.
Because he's trying to play that part,
Yeah.
right? Like, I don't really think he cares all that much about 0 APR, right? Like,
Right.
he's just playing that part for sort of his wife, really, who he thinks is just some computer genius.
Right. And so we get a whole lot of that kind of back and forth of them playing boring for each other.
But we do get like these really fun sort of winks at Angelina Jolie's actually like a assassin badass, because like when she's like adjusting the curtains, she's balancing on one leg of it, right?
Yeah.
And then as he comes back in the room, he puts it down. So like before we see them do anything badass, she's being coded as a like assassin badass sort of figure.
Right.
And it seems he doesn't have that necessarily.
Right. Well, we know he had the gun, but he doesn't seem as practiced and meticulous as her.
Well, and I think that the way this does play out makes sense in hindsight, but what they're trying to say is he's more fly by the seat of his pants, gets by on his charm and charisma and natural talent, and she's more of I got to study, got to be methodical, very type A, right?
Right.
So like I get why they do this, but it made it seem like he was just using her as a beard and she was just using him as a beard, but for her secret agent hitmanery job. Like that's like what she's using him for.
Right. We cut to, they're both clearly going out for something, but they're supposed to go to the Coleman's that night. And she's like, don't worry, I'll be there. I just have to go downtown to handle this thing. And he's like, all right, fine.
She's like, it'll be a quickie.
A quickie. So she goes to a fancy hotel. He goes to an underground dive bar to play poker, or seemingly to play poker, but we know that he's pretending to be drunk, so he's clearly there on a job. She is pretending to be a dominatrix and then just fully snaps that dude's neck.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
I love the way she got out of there with like her like purse that like becomes like a Weezer ass slinky that like unravels as she like lands on the ground and just like gets in the taxi and drives away. It's great.
Amazing. And then he plays that poker game until the guy whose seat he took comes back.
A guy named Lucky.
Which
I thought was great because Lucky's like, hey, what is this?
He says, are you waiting for a job?
Yeah.
And he goes, you are the job. Yes.
And then he kills everybody. And I like that he didn't take the money. Did you notice that?
He didn't take the money, but he did look to see what cards people had because they were bluffing.
I loved that too, but he didn't take the money because then it would look like it was a gunfight that started over cards.
Right.
And not a robbery that took place. And I thought that was smart.
Yeah, he's not a dumb guy. Like, he is also really good at his job.
Oh, he's very talented. I think she is just more methodical. She like really likes to plan things.
Yeah, they do it in different ways.
Yes, but they're both very good at their job.
Yeah, but we cut to the house where she is trying to change out of her dominatrix outfit and he comes home too soon. So she is forced to kind of scramble in the closet, and that's how she ends up in a very prim and proper preppy housewife dress with fishnets and knee-high boots still on.
This movie could have been written by James Bond on some level. Like if you change her job to like a secretary job and give her the last name of like Hole-in-One or whatever, like this would be written by Ian Fleming. Like that's the way they treat the gender roles in this movie.
Yes.
I think they do this for a reason because they do reveal that like she's never cooked a day in her life. She's not actually cooking this stuff.
I love that.
It is just a performance because it's the cover story she's trying to abide by. So I did like that it sets it up that way and then flips that trope, but it does get real misogynistic at the very beginning because of that.
Yeah, and I do agree with you. I think it's played that way so that they can flip it later. I do love in this scene that someone hands her a baby and she acts like it's a bomb.
Yes.
And she just kind of like holds it away from her.
Yeah.
But they get home. And he's like, I like your dress. She's getting ready for bed. He goes out to the tool shed, and this is where we see his secret lair where he's got tons of money, weapons, etc.
Yeah.
As soon as she hears him leave the next morning to go to work, she turns on what looks like the second oven, which is my dream. I would love to have a double oven in my kitchen.
But would you stuff your double oven with guns, Paige?
I would not, but I respect that hiding place. It was very, very cool because that's where all of her stuff is.
Yes.
We cut to him going to work, which is like a very nondescript office. It looks like a contractor business. And it's him and Vince Vaughn and a handful of other people that are all kind of planning out who they're killing. And I kind of wish that we got a little more of this. Like, when was the last time you saw Deadpool?
The first one?
The first one, where they're in the bar and they're like, who is going to die and who's up for killing? And like, I wanted some stuff like that of like how they were tracking who they were killing, who, like how they were getting assignments. And we get a lot more of that from her than from him.
Yeah.
But he logs into Atlanta, which is what they call their system that basically tells them who they're going to go kill.
Yeah, that's how they communicate with like their big bosses. Like none of that's ever explained because it's not really important.
Yeah.
But that's how they get their jobs and that's how they get paid.
Yeah. But he gets an assignment for Benjamin Dans, aka the Tank, who is Adam Brody. And as the audience, immediately we're like, he's not an agent because we saw him get that thing and he couldn't go in. That like something's off here, right?
Yeah.
So she also gets the same essentially target from Keith David. And we're like, well, that's weird because we know that Keith David was the one that was talking to him. So maybe it's like the thing that he gave him.
Yeah.
But immediately it casts some doubt on what's going on. Regardless, this is where we get a shot of her office, which is all a bunch of who's who of who will be on Law and Order episodes later in their lives, ladies. And they are all like super methodical, immediately could kill people. It's kind of awesome. And they start planning. We cut to the desert as the helicopter and the SUVs are approaching the drop zone to trade off Adam Brody.
Yeah.
She's in a shack kind of thing. She has an armed perimeter so that when the helicopter lands, it would blow charges so that he at least could not make it into the helicopter.
Yeah.
And ideally, they'd catch a car on the way. Meanwhile, as she's watching, she sees a dune buggy and is like, what the fuck? What is this civilian bogey doing here? And he gets out to pee, but then pulls out a fucking grenade launcher and is like, oh, not a civilian.
No, yeah.
Not good.
I thought it was nuts, and maybe they don't even really focus on it right here, but when they're watching the video of this later as they're like trying to figure out who it is, and he's like, I guess done peeing, he shakes his leg very aggressively, and I just did not understand, as a dick haver, why you would shake your leg that aggressively. It was crazy. Or at all. Like, I've never shook my whole leg.
You know what? As not a dick haver, I don't know. I don't know why y'all do the things you do.
Paige, I don't even know either. It seemed nuts to me.
Whenever he eats and everything, it seems nuts to me. Like, he kind of physically overacts all the time, a little bit, in weird, like, you know, in Ocean's 11 with those nachos where he's like,
yes, I do.
And you're just like, Jesus Christ, man, we haven't even gotten into ASMR. It's not even popular yet.
He's always been a trendsetter.
Yeah, his hands are like covered in cheese. I'm just like, what?
Paige.
You're hot, but I need a napkin.
You're just turning yourself on more at this point.
I just want nachos. That sounds really good.
But wouldn't you lick them off his fingers?
I mean, yeah, probably. Anyway, so she takes a shot at him and gets him right in the middle of the chest. He gets up, launches the grenade at her shack, and she does escape. But like it triggers the charges, which then go off behind him. So the whole thing is bungled. They both survive, but they've ID'd each other to a degree where he's like, I'm pretty sure it was a girl. Like, she wasn't large. I don't know who she is, but she's definitely a pro because of the stuff that she had.
Yeah.
She is then going back to her team, like, I don't know who it is, but like, I missed the target. So now I have 48 hours to, you know, take this guy out. So that sets the timetable of you have 48 hours to clear the scene. They have 48 hours to kill each other. This should be the beginning of our act 2.
Yeah. And this, okay, I like that for a little bit, they're trying to kill each other.
Absolutely.
Because if you're looking at the metaphor of like a relationship coming apart and then two people deciding that maybe you're worth fighting for this relationship.
Sure.
You know, I love the metaphor of the movie. I think it's great. But like, I want them to have those, like the two of them fighting moments.
Right.
It needs to be much quicker that they decide they want to be together though.
Yeah, I would agree with you. So at this point, they are now trying to figure out who the other person is. So he has her laptop from the scene. He takes it to a young, I believe it's Michelle Monaghan, pre-Mission Impossible. Yet again, a famous lady ending up in this.
It is.
She gives him basically a billing address for the drive, which he does trace back to his wife's office.
Yeah.
She then has the video of him that she then traces. So now they know that it's each other.
Yes.
And so he calls and is like, hey, what are we going to do about dinner? She's like, dinner's at 7. It always is. They speed home.
Yeah. I do love that they both know that the other person is a spy, but they don't know that the other person knows they're a spy. Or not a spy, but an assassin, I should say.
An assassin, yeah.
So, like, I love the way this next scene plays out because of what we know, they know.
Right. And like he gets home, she's cooked pot roast and it has drinks, and he sees like the Drano on the counter, and he's just like, did she poison me? Like, what's happening?
But she didn't, because she eats the olives, right? So like,
yes.
I think that proves she didn't poison him, but it might have been in the roast.
It might have been in the roast. Who knows? Because he does kind of swallow it.
But she's also eating the roast too. So like,
who knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
And he cuts it. She cuts the bread. They both have knives.
Yeah.
And they're talking about work. Like, how was it? Oh, double booked. And it hasn't worked out. Like he's like, can you pass the salt? And he's like, oh, it's right by his plate. And he salts everything but doesn't eat it because that's probably where the poison is.
That's what I thought.
But she goes to pour a bottle of wine and accidentally knocks off the table, and they catch it.
Well, no, so he drops it on purpose. Like, he picks it up.
Right.
I think he pours her a glass and then drops it on purpose. And she, without even turning her head, and she is looking the other way, she catches it. And then she realizes that he saw her do this thing that only an assassin on fucking meth could do.
Right.
And then she drops it.
Like, but she did catch it for that moment.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then they're both like, under their guise of, I'm going to go clean it up, they both run to different corners of the house and grab guns.
Yes.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I'll clean it up, don't worry about it. And they're like going to get like, I think she gets like a assault rifle and he gets a silenced pistol, and they like start hunting each other around the house.
Through the house. But she very quickly runs and gets into the car and the thing that we see that he doesn't see is that she can't do it.
Right.
She's like, oh God, I can't do it.
I don't think she actually poisoned him, because I don't think she could do it.
I don't think she did either.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the thing is, like, he thinks that she's trying to kill him the whole time, but every time she even gets close, she hesitates, but he's not seeing that. And it's not until much later that they realize that neither one of them wants to kill the other one.
Yeah.
But he's chasing after her with the car, and he kind of tumbles through a fence, and the gun accidentally goes off. And so she's like, he fucking shot at me. And he's like, no, honey, it was an accident. Let's
I
talk.
love that.
We can't go to sleep angry.
Yeah.
And she runs him over.
Yeah, she like runs over, and then he grabs onto the roof, and they're like talking through, I mean, more or less the bullet hole in the windshield for like.
Well, and then he kind of slides into the back seat.
Yeah.
Like breaks the window, slides in the back seat. And then she bails out of the car and lets it go over into like a ravine.
Yeah, it was great.
And as he's like out the window at the back, he's like, we need to talk.
Yeah.
She then goes to sleep at her office. He goes to Vince Vaughn's house, and they're like, all right, tomorrow we start trying to kill each other again. And Kerry Washington has this great scene where she's just like, hey, you don't love him, so we'll kill him. We'll start tomorrow. It'll be over. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And she, as Kerry Washington leaves, goes, you don't love him, but she's not sure about it. She's just kind of like,
I mean, she did say to Kerry Washington, you're right, I don't, or whatever. And then you could tell when she says that's not something that she actually believes. Even though she does say the words,
right,
you don't love him.
Right.
It's just all in that performance of it. Yeah.
Yeah. We cut to the house the next day as multiple vans pull up, and it's entirely her team.
I love this.
Tearing her house apart.
Because like the night before, that's the fight that causes people to like go to their corners, right? They go to their friend's house, they stay the night somewhere else because they got to let off steam. And then the next day, she's there to move out. And she posseed up to bring everybody in to help get her shit out, because I'm not wasting my time with this sloth anymore.
Yes. And they go through and secure the whole place. And so they're like tearing apart the bear that she won when they were shooting at the carnival earlier.
Yeah.
They watch her wedding video. Meanwhile, he goes to the neighbor's house. He waits for the vans to leave, but then he brings the neighbor over to walk through the house as a bullet shield.
I love that page.
Where he like stays behind him the whole time.
He like for sure uses Bill as a bullet shield. Yes.
Yes.
It's so funny. Like just shows up at his house randomly and I guess offers Bill a tour.
Yeah, because Bill's like, I've never been inside this place.
I like both of my neighbors. If they came over and were like, Todd, do you want a tour? I'd be like, no, Adam, I have to work. I can't come over right now.
Yeah, I would assume it's similar to my house because these are track homes. Like, I know his is different. It's a big old house that they've done a bunch of like renovations and stuff to. But anyway, he goes out to the tool shed and realizes that she has cleared him out. And he just goes, bitch. And it reminded me of that Key and Peele sketch. It was just like, I said, bitch.
Yeah, it's very funny. But I mean, I'm sure there were people who could relate to like their spouse getting back to the house first and clearing out all the good shit before they could get their hands on it.
I will tell you that when I worked for Sur La Table, it was incredibly common for one or the other, either one.
Yeah, it could be either.
Either one to get to the house and clear stuff out. And it was always the same items every single time. And so people would come into the store and they'd be like, so I'm going through a divorce. And you're like, so they took the Vitamix and the KitchenAid and the Le Creuset, and they were like, and the All Clad, God damn it. And you were like, all right, get a cart, let's go. Like,
you're about to lose $1,500 plus.
Yeah, yes. But like the amount of people that would come, the amount of guys that came in are like, she took my Vitamix. I was like, they always do.
Yeah.
Let me get the box for you. Vitamix, KitchenAid, Le Creuset. Here's the weird thing. Girlfriends took the Vitamix almost every single time. Men took the KitchenAid every single time, usually for spite. They're like, he doesn't even bake, and he takes it. And then same-sex couples took the Le Creuset. It was wild. It was such a fascinating social experiment. But yeah, you could always tell. You're like, oh, you're down a Vitamix, aren't you? Sorry, bro.
Warmer, sunnier days are calling, and you can fuel up for them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer or fall, really. Thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great-tasting meals. You can keep kitchen time to a minimum. Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes. So there's no shopping, no chopping, no cooking, no cleanup, no prepping. It's so fast, it's so easy. You can make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert and stay fueled with great nutritious options. Make today the day you kickstart your healthy new routine. What are you waiting for? Head to factormeals.com/romancingthepod50 and use code romancingthepod50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code romancingthepod50 at factormeals.com/romancingthepod50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active.
Canva presents the killer of productivity. It was an ordinary workday until...
Oh no, this meeting, it could have been an email.
Run. Canva had a creative solve.
Forget email. I'll just put the info the team needs in a Canva doc, and I'll make it visual with images, charts, and graphics.
Bring productivity killers to justice with creativity. Love your work at canva.com.
Anyway, she has taken all his guns. She's taken his Vitamix.
Yes.
She is back in the office and she's like, I need you guys to find him. And they're like, how? By searching John Smith? I don't even think that's his name. Like, is Jane even your name? And she's just like,
no.
Fuck. Like,
yeah.
Damn it.
I do think it's funny. She makes a joke about that later. She says, oh, hey, honey, when he's like in the elevator or whatever. And he goes, oh, so you're still Mrs. Smith? And she goes, there's so many of us.
Yeah, there's so many of us.
I thought that was so funny.
But he has now infiltrated her building because he knows where she works. And they've got a breach in the perimeter. So they're going to evacuate. And they do the coolest shit ever where they like break out all the windows and then they go across to the building across the way using these zip lines.
They have a zip line gun. Like, it's a zip line gun.
It's dope as hell.
It's awesome. I want to get a bunch for Mikey. So if he's ever in some high rise downtown after a sweet night of amore, he could be like, well, I've got an early work meeting, and then exit the coolest fucking way possible.
Now I'm just picturing him in that I Think You Should Leave sketch where it's like, hey, we're thinking that you're not here for the right reasons and you're only here to ride the zip line.
Yeah.
What? Are you sure? Are you sure?
That is a great sketch. It's no coffin flop, but it's great.
It's no coffin flop, but it's pretty close. But I do love that at one point they're arguing about, she's like, I could pull the plug, I could press the button. And he's like, I could press the button. And she's like, you couldn't find the button with both hands in a map. And I was like, oh, he bad at sex.
Which again, I was like, what kind of beard was she for him?
Well, she was like, are you satisfied? And he's like, not in years. I was like, do you guys not know how it works? I feel like you're both very attractive.
Yeah.
And like, it's not rocket surgery. Like, a book, some lube, like, guys, come on. Like,
yeah, just like figure it out.
Yeah.
It's fun to figure it out.
Y'all had sex on a bench in the rain in Bogota. It was like the fucking hottest thing we've ever seen. And you can't figure this shit out? Weird. Weird. Anyway, he's in the vents, Die Hard style. And as she leaves, he calls her a chicken shit. She calls him a pussy, but they didn't take the shot.
They didn't. And when she calls him a pussy or P word, she like smiles. Like it's like she's very sort of into the cat and mouse. Like I think she's like a little bit excited.
They're finally enjoying each other,
exactly.
I would say.
Yes.
Yes.
Because they're being honest with each other, Paige.
Yes. Yes. They can finally be themselves with each other.
Yes.
Yes. So he has taken some of the stuff from her office to find out where her new safe house is and finds in the furnace a piece of letterhead. So he thinks that he knows where the office is. He calls.
Yeah.
They're like, how's that new penthouse working out? And he's like, great. So he goes to the site. He goes to the elevator. Turns out they're in a food truck down below. They're not up there at all.
Right.
But they have tricked him and trapped him in one of the elevators. And he's basically dares her. He's like, yeah, okay, blow me up.
Well, because he's like, I already took all the charges or whatever off of the cables that hold up and the brakes that stop an elevator from crashing to its death or whatever. And she goes, oh, well, did you forget? And she says, it's not this, but it's more or less this. Did you take the explosive that was going to cut the main line?
Right.
He like gets concerned and like, that would be the first one you'd take. If it's called the main cable or whatever, like you're going to take that one first. It's the main one. But the reason he's playing along here is because he's not even in that fucking elevator. He's in a different one, and he switched the camera feeds through a magic box that's never explained.
Yeah.
But we see him take off the camera in the elevator he's actually in.
Yeah, and essentially he's tricking her into seeing if she will actually do it. And here's the thing, she doesn't. Stephanie March does.
Right. She does say goodbye. I do think Stephanie March, if we're doing a like post-incident report, I think she's in the clear.
Sure.
Because it did seem like a good time narratively to blow it up.
Yes. Angelina Jolie is actually upset. And so she goes back and has dinner at the place where he proposed, and she's kind of sitting there crying.
She's crying from like the weirdest spot on her eye, though. It's like not in the center or the sides or the like inner corner. It's like 3/4 of the way through. It's very strange.
Yeah.
I've never seen a tear come from that part of anyone's face ever.
I know. It was very weird.
It's almost like they applied it with an eyedropper.
They definitely did, but normally they apply in like the corners and stuff, but they didn't.
Yes.
Anyway, he shows up and she's just like, oh, hey, you're alive. Wonderful. And he's like, I want a divorce. And she's like, of course, because we're trying to kill each other. And she's like, how do you want to do it? And he's like, well, we could do it right here in this restaurant. She's like, yeah, but they'll call the police after you're dead. And so like, this is not going to,
Because they're like actually going to try and kill each other. Like they both have guns under napkins at this point. This is like the moment that they are the most apart that they are in this entire movie.
Right.
Like she thinks he tried to kill her when they were running out of the house and that he mistakenly shot the bullet through the windshield. And he thinks she mistakenly tried to kill him because of the elevator snafu with her subordinate or whatever that team structure is, right? But yeah.
Right.
So like they're both like, well, my partner's trying to kill me. Maybe we should get divorced.
Right. Well, and now I'm defending myself.
Yes.
Like that's the difference. Yeah.
Absolutely. Any sort of level of violence is justified because my partner's trying to kill me.
Right. So they dance and they're doing a tango, and this is very, very hot, but he like smashes her against a mirror. He's like looking for the knife that she has. He throws it into the wall. She's looking for his gun. She finds it at his ankle holster.
When he looks, like when she goes down to check his ankle holster and he looks directly at the camera, and I was like, I know what you're doing here.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it. It was cute. It was funny.
Well, and I do think that here, when she comes up, because we do get that shot of that old man that's like, nice.
Nice. Yeah, I love when she gets down deep and gets my ankle gun.
Little holster, yeah.
Oof.
Touching my ankles.
Oh,
Oof.
play with the bullets, baby. I would like to apologize to everyone who heard me say that. Oh, God.
No, keep it in. She stands up and he's like, I have a theory. You killed us because you treated this like a job. And she's like, well, you avoided it.
Yeah.
And like, so I was just a cover. He's like, what was I just a cover? I don't know. Was I just... This is them for just a moment being like, wait a second, I actually liked you. Maybe this wasn't just a cover. Oh, no, what'd I do?
Yeah.
And she's like, I have to go, and goes upstairs into what seems like the bathroom. And he's like, there's no exits up there. We then see people running because she has like a bomb or something in that bathroom.
Paige, I don't think she could have fit a bomb in that dress. I think maybe she's a little sensitive to gluten and she ate a bunch of cheese and had to run to the bathroom, and that was the result. But it's crazy to me that she like just runs up to the bathroom and then sets a bomb off, because that's really what the movie wants us to think she did.
I think she either had it planted there ahead of time, which the movie kind of suggests, or
Yes.
she vagina pocketed it.
Meat pocket. And I think Brad Pitt even had a press release shortly after this movie came out that said her vagina was the bomb. So that checks out.
There you go.
Allegedly, guys, calm down. Paige, by the way, I saw you laugh as I was giving the setup to that joke, which makes me laugh because you already knew the punchline before I got there. And that to me is very funny.
I was just finishing it.
Yeah.
But she runs out. He chases her in the crowd, and a guy next to him is like, hey, man, you're ticking.
Oh, yeah.
So that when she was looking for his gun, she planted a bomb on him.
Yes, which is brutal, guys. Don't plant a bomb on your loved ones.
Or anyone. Don't plant a bomb on anyone.
Take case by case basis, guys.
All right,
Sometimes it's worth it. Actually, don't do that. Never do that. But I think that it's interesting that this movie is like wanting us to want these people who are actively trying to kill each other to be together by the end of this movie.
Yeah.
Like the premise is just very silly. Because if you take it seriously, like they both are like trying to kill their spouse.
Yeah.
And those people should not be together.
No. In fact, we'll talk about it when we get to it, but there's a point later that I was like, oh no. But we'll get to it in a sec. So he then tosses his jacket in a mailbox so the bomb can explode in there. He commandeers a limo, and now they're on the phone, and he's like, I'm going to go home and burn everything I ever bought you. And she's like, I will race you there.
Yeah.
Which sets up the thing that the movie thinks is the like best scene in the movie. Because they do this talk of like, what did you think when we first met? What was your first thought? You know, you were like Christmas morning. You were the most beautiful Mark had ever seen.
Yeah.
Basically making it seem like she's kind of a cold-blooded killer and doesn't care about him, even though we know it's not true.
I think it's pretty clear. I think she telegraphs it pretty hard that it's not true, although it's after she hangs up with him. But
yes,
he is, I think, very vulnerable in this moment. I think that this is like metaphorically, like this is him being actually honest with her for the first time about how he feels about her.
Right.
Which, can you imagine how like terrifying it would be to be in a relationship with someone who you did not know how they felt about you? Like,
yeah.
I understand why like Angelina Jolie needs to know how her husband feels about her, and he has not ever been honest with her about that. So I like this moment for her, but I do think she sort of like doesn't play it the best because she does not return that like vulnerability with her own vulnerability.
Right.
But if they did, they would just come together in this moment, and then it would be the movie that I pitched where they like pull off on the side of the road, fuck viciously in one of those cars, and then come up with the plan in the steam on the windows about how to take out both of the agencies.
Yes.
And then Vince Vaughn is like revealed as the guy who double-crossed him, or is the guy who gets him inside to help. Either way, I don't care.
Either way. But instead, they go to the house. I do love that they get in a car accident in the driveway because she's always insisting on going first through the driveway. We see it multiple times in the film. It cracks me up every time.
Yeah, it does seem like before this movie, she never got to go first, and that was a very big problem in their relationship.
Right. Yeah, he was always rolling over and sleeping in the passenger seat after he went down the driveway.
Exactly. If you catch our drifts.
But she runs into the house. He is running around the house trying to figure out how to get in. And this is where one of the neighbors confronts him. And he's just like, no, everything's fine. It takes them a full 7 minutes for him to get inside the house. This is where the movie really starts to drag, and it's because the movie thinks this is what you've wanted to see this whole time.
It is.
And to a degree it is, but we needed a more efficient version of it.
The only thing I need, because it does take him forever to get in the house.
Yes.
The only thing I need is him struggling to get inside inside, and then Bob coming up and being like, hey, your car's hanging over the sidewalk, and then him yelling, now's not the time, Bob!
Right.
And then him breaking in a window and immediately getting inside. Like, I only need that moment, because the moment with Bob is very funny. I don't need him checking every other point of egress into the house. I just need him to, like, break in a window. They're going to blow up the house in 4 minutes.
Yes.
He can break a window.
I wish it was in 4 minutes, Todd.
I know. It's like 15. I know. It is a long scene. This scene exists so idiots like me will go sit through our therapy lesson.
I guess you could still have this scene, and you should still have this scene.
You need it. Yeah.
We just need it cut more like an action movie. We need it cut faster.
Yes.
Because they both end up with guns. We get them with guns. Then they shoot at each other for conservatively 5 whole minutes of just shooting at each other. And we do get the one line that still cracks me up to this day where she shoots and goes, you still alive, baby? And he sounds like he's been hit, but he's playing, and then he just shoots back at her.
Yeah.
But then we literally get them just firing and reloading and knocking over stuff and shooting at each other forever. We do get them shooting the fridge. That's pretty fun.
Yeah.
He throws the cleaver. Then he pulls the gas line, which starts a fire, an active fire in the home that they will then spend the night in without putting out.
I mean, some fires put themselves out, Paige. That's a famous thing that fires never do.
Sure.
But a lot of this fight scene is great.
Sure.
Some of it's not great. Like the moment when the fire starts is when he like makes the gas start.
Yes.
And she just like holds the gun up, but is in no way shooting it.
Right.
There's no muzzle flash on it.
Right.
And it would be the muzzle flash that ignited the fire.
Right.
The explosion actually comes from the oven itself.
Yeah.
Not the combination of the muzzle flash and the gas that's in the air. So it looks comical, but again, this is a cartoon, so it's fine.
Yeah, they never turn the gas off, which means that fire would be almost unfucking stoppable.
Paige, what it means is the rest of this movie is a Jacob's Ladder situation as they both die.
I love that.
Because that gas, if you leave it on in a closed, confined space, will kill you.
Yeah. Here's where it starts to get not so fun for me, because I feel like the movie finds this really sexy, and I understand why, but they kind of took it to an 11 where like he fully hits her. Like there are multiple points where he's physically with his fists ass hitting her.
Oh, in this fight scene, they punch each other like they are fighting. Yes.
They punch each other. They are fighting. And yes, they do shoot it so that she has what I would say a seemingly equal footing in the fight.
She is a badass. Yeah.
She is a badass. But us as the audience, we're still watching it and looking at a man who is twice her weight fucking punching her in the fucking face. Like, well, I remember watching it originally in theaters and being like, damn, and then feeling like I was like, okay, but it kind of gets sexy after. But now I'm like, oh no, how do you stay married to this person when you're like, you punched me in the face? Like there was a point at which I was down and you kicked me repeatedly in the ribs. And
a bunch. Like a bunch. Yeah, he kicks her like 4 times.
Yeah, we shot it behind the couch, and it's supposed to be okay because I hit you back, but like, no, there is something very wrong. It's not okay. Oof magoof.
I mean, I think the movie plays it like it's okay because it's such a heightened reality. Like,
sure.
I've sort of said this a few times. Like, at the end of this movie, I do want them to be together, even though they are fully ass just murder for hire assassins. Like, they are the villain in every other movie.
I mean, having watched this today, I am not confident that they won't still try to kill each other.
You know what's great about it, though, Paige? I don't care if one of them kills the other.
I don't care.
Because they're terrible, murderous people.
They are.
They both should be in jail for life. Like, this is the only movie, and this is not a controversial statement, but I'll say it like it is one. This is the only movie that talks about body count where it actually sort of matters in the eyes of the law.
Right.
Because she's murdered so many. I mean,
312 people we will find out in momentarily.
And he's like in the high 50s or 60s or whatever, you know?
That's still enough to go away for multiple lifetimes.
50 or 60, yes.
And I don't know why I find it more affecting for him to just physically hit her than it was for them to shoot at each other. Because I think when I'm like, they're shooting at each other because they're assassins, ha ha ha. And then he hits her and I was like, oh no, no.
Ooh, too real.
Too real, too close. Oh no. Because essentially they end up in a standoff. They're both aiming guns at each other. They can't do it.
Yeah.
And they just start banging, but also still hitting each other a little bit. And I was like,
Paige.
oh no.
Paige.
Oh, you got to talk that out beforehand.
I mean, it does seem like they're both into it, though.
It does. Sure.
That's what I was going to say. Like, if that's a consensual thing y'all get down with, that's fine, I guess, as long as it's actually both consensual, I guess.
Correct.
But they're hitting each other pretty hard. Like, it's not like just an open hand slap or like whatever. Like, it's closed fist, and that's like a rule I don't break.
Yeah.
So, no.
It's a lot. Well, to the point, I was sitting there and I was like, if this happened in 50 Shades, that movie would have never come out. Like that, like just in any sort of sexy movie, if any of this would have happened, people would have been like, no. But in 2005, they were like, yeah. Hit her with a closed fist.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ.
But like during sex, I feel like it's almost more okay when they're just fighting and she's like boxing him back. Like they're going hit for hit.
Right.
But in this moment, it feels weird.
It feels real weird.
Although I know for a fact she hits him too, although I think hers might be an open hand slap.
She slaps him.
But yeah.
And then kisses him again. But oof, yeah, I was like, I am uncomfortable. Like, I didn't remember this being, because I remembered this scene and remember them like fighting and ending up having sex. I had forgotten the literal hand-to-hand combat. And I was like, oh, no, this don't hold up. This doesn't hold up.
Right.
But they call the cops on them because obviously.
I sort of loved when Bob comes over with his wife and they open the door.
Shame about the red oak.
That is what he says as he closes the door. But like, I mean, there have been like explosions and gunshots. I understood why they called the cops, right?
Right.
But when they come over, like Brad Pitt has a tie like tied around his arm like he had been tied to a bedpost.
Yeah.
And he's not wearing a shirt and she's just in a bed sheet because they have been like anger banging it out, you know?
Yes. On a bunch of broken glass.
You know, the sexiest thing imaginable or whatever.
Oh, God.
But like, I loved when they open the door and reveal like her, which is a little bit into the scene because it's just Brad Pitt at first. So when they reveal her,
right,
Bob goes, oh, good job. Like he says something like that. He's like, oh, nice. Okay, cool.
Nice.
Like Bob is instantly like, oh, you guys were just shooting holes in all of your walls to heighten the sex.
Those are just cum holes.
You know, the famous thing everyone knows about.
Blast through her back like a shotgun, like Lois Lane.
Like it's Species, but the other way around.
Oh, Species.
Never seen it.
I know.
But I know about the scene.
I know. Anyway, yes. So, yes, shame about the red oak.
Right.
They leave them alone. And then we get this like scene of them having like a peaceful morning together where they keep drinking out of broken glassware and eating on broken plates. And I'm just like, you're gonna swallow glass. Stop. Go to a Denny's. Like, I just couldn't handle it.
I do think Denny's is a better option than what they're currently doing. Yes.
Yes.
But mainly because their house is like about to fall apart.
It is. Well, and I love that they're like comparing different times that they lied and went on a mission and whatever. And who should show up but the postman there to murder people? Because suddenly there's 1.5 million assassins. There's tear gas. There's a bounty on their head. And they are about to get killed. So they make their way out to the tool shed. And someone ignites something that's a giant fuel tank under their tough shed.
No. So what happens is they go down into that like sub-basement thing, right?
And there's a robot with a grenade.
Yeah, the robot drops the grenade. And instead of like kicking it somewhere harmless, Brad Pitt kicks it and it bounces off the wall and goes right under the propane tank in their house. It's like such a big thing that's just fuel.
For fucking what, Todd?
I don't know. They're assassins, Paige. It could be anything.
That's fair.
Nothing makes sense. It's all a cartoon. This whole thing could be a 30 Rock cutaway.
It could.
Like it's like a live action cartoon. And I mean that in a good way. Like I enjoy that part of it.
Sure.
But because of that, it blows up the whole house and they have to like get out and run out, you know?
Right. Well, and they live, a lot of the assassins die, but they have to steal the Coleman's car.
Yes.
And I love that he's had my barbecue set for months and that's why they steal it.
Yeah, he was like justifying why he's allowed to steal the car. That shit was so funny.
So funny. But this is where they end up in this minivan for a very long chase and they spend the whole time kind of like comparing and actually learning about each other. This is where we learn that he was an art history major and that she's never cooked a day in her life, and it was all of the girls at the agency that cooked.
Yeah.
They're doing evasive driving. She ends up driving. This is when he opens the back and doesn't like throw a seat at people and just keeps shooting a bulletproof car.
Yeah, because he's real stupid.
Yeah.
He's real dumb, Paige.
And gets a golf club.
Well, I mean, that actually does pay off, though, Paige, because he hits him with the golf club and pulls that grenade out, and then the grenade falls, and then the car explodes. Like, that's the only thing he does right in this moment, in this whole scene.
Right.
Because later, after about literally 5 minutes of, like, sequence, like a car chase sequence.
Right.
Like, she does it like a J-turn or whatever and, like, shoots them herself and then turns the van back around and then goes. Yeah.
Just shoots their tires. Yeah, and they crash.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, like, it's fine.
But I do love, also in this scene, we find out that he's been married before, and she gets pissed.
Dude, she gets so pissed. She, like, makes him fly into the front. Yeah.
And she's like, what's her name and social?
Yeah, what's her name and her social? He goes, no, you're not going to kill her.
You're not going to kill her.
So funny.
She's definitely going to kill that. That woman needs to run.
Yes, she will be dead shortly.
Yes, but she crashes them into the barrier cans. Water goes everywhere. They do kind of get away at this point. This is where he throws a dude through the van from one side door to the other side door. Very funny.
Yeah.
We find out that she paid actors to be her parents at the wedding, and he brought his actual family, but the actor that she hired for her dad was on Fantasy Island.
Okay, did you immediately Google, was John Voight ever in Fantasy Island?
No, I didn't. Was John Voight ever on Fantasy Island?
Paige, I didn't have that thought until right now, but I'm going to check.
Oh, that's a brilliant thought.
John Voight was never in an episode of Fantasy Island. I looked it up.
Boo! That would have been a fun Easter egg. Anyway, we then cut to them confronting Vince Vaughn at the diner.
Yeah.
And Vince Vaughn is like, spoiler, it's both of your agencies against you because they found out you're married. They tried to take you out by booking you double for that hit. They're working together and they're trying to take you out. So the only way that you survive is if you split up. He's like, or unless you have something else that they want. And they're like, ah ha ha. Oh no, I guess, hold on. He doesn't know that the agencies are working together. He just knows that there's a bounty on both of their heads.
Yes.
Because they won't find out that it's, yeah. So he's like, you should split up or find something they want. And they're like, haha, we'll get that guy originally that they hired us to get.
Adam Brody and Paige.
Yes.
In the scene before this, they steal the Coleman's car and leave. They're not wearing the clothes that they were wearing in that scene.
No, we have no idea where they got them. Do you know?
I could tell you where they got them. It's literally written right on them. They were the clothes that were in the Coleman's car. Did you see what they were?
They're soccer uniforms. Like they're soccer training, like tracksuits. Are they not? That's what they look like.
Okay, they are tracksuits. They are velour tracksuits for the Christian Bowling League team, Jesus Rocks.
Shut the fuck up. That's hysterical.
I loved it. It was amazing, and I need to see more of Jesus. I have
whatever
to know.
Deleted scene. Yes.
I have to see them bowling with the Colemans while the Colemans wear their Jesus Rocks velour jumpsuit. I have to see
That's so funny. See, I thought, because there is a soccer bag in the back of the van that they kind of throw out.
I think that's their bowling bag.
That must, okay, because I was like, that must be where they get them.
Yeah, it's wild.
So they decide that they're going to go after Adam Brody. This is, at this point, I clocked how much more movie we had, because I was like, I'm almost done with this movie, and we're just now coming up with some sort of solution.
Yeah.
And if you take off the time for credits, there's only about 20 minutes left in the movie, which, by the way, spoiler, not enough for a whole new plot point.
Right. I do think that, like, the movie even says at one point, Vince Vaughn's talking to Brad Pitt, and he's like, hey, she's made a fool of you, right? Like, her whole office has known this whole time. They really didn't. But, like, they're, like, amping each other up and, like, you have to kill her because, like, she's made you look a fool or whatever. She's made you, like, in the novel of this life, for the first 200 pages, you've been the fool. For the last 10 pages, you get to rewrite the last 10 pages.
Right.
And then they fight for like another 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So if that's just the last 10 pages, are we just getting the last 5 pages here?
Yeah.
And why are we only spending, quote, 5 pages on them wanting to be together and fighting to be together?
Right. And so this is where they're like comparing how many people they've killed. And she's like, some of them were 2 at a time. Don't worry about it.
Oh, I love the body count reveal because he's like, do you want me to go first? Like, he knows.
Yeah.
He's so confident that his number's going to be higher than hers. And he's like, it's been like 50 or 60 or whatever. So like, I'm pretty experienced. And she's
I've been
like,
around the block is what he says.
Yes, literally what he says, I think. And he's like, well, what's your number? And she's like, 312. And it affects him. It's so funny.
I have a headcanon about this because we found out that she has lost both her parents and she's an orphan, and she has a considerable amount more, which I think means she's been doing it for longer. So I don't know if you've ever seen like Leon the Professional or Point of No Return.
Yes.
But I feel like she's one of those.
Yeah.
like what's her face in Marvel, Black Widow. Like she's one of them.
Yeah, she's a Black Widow for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did want him to be like, after she said 312, I wanted him to be like, were you at least safe?
Yeah.
Like something like that like would play on the like, did you use protection like joke of it all? Like, I don't know. I thought that would be funny. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, we find out that they have to break him out of a federal courthouse where he's held in the basement.
Yeah, this is where they kill more federal agents than the Oklahoma City bombing.
Yeah.
They literally kill like 15 federal agents.
Immediately, but they also just yada through it where he's just like, I'm crawling through the vents and now I'm in the stairs. I shot them all. Thanks for turning the lights off. Great, we got him.
Yeah.
That scene it's like 2 minutes of them like executing a heist and bungling it and not listening to each other, but they still get the guy, so great.
They figure it out. They get through it. They see Brody's vibe from across this safe house and invite him back to a shady motel where they set up a video camera. Like that is literally the next scene. They're in like a let's just say it's a motel that like definitely charges by the hour.
Yes, but there is a scene in between that I actually fucking love.
Oh, yeah?
That I wish there was more of this in this movie, where they are in the van arguing about not working well together, of like, there's no room for mistakes, there's no spontaneity, it's not even a real marriage. And then we just hear Adam Brody from the back go, who are you people?
Yeah.
And it's
great.
Hilarious, especially because we open the next scene in that motel, for like that hourly motel, where Brad Pitt's like, we realize that you may have witnessed some domestic issues and that is regrettable. Like, you have seen us fighting, but here's what's up. And this is where Adam Brody, he kind of hems and haws for a bit until Angelina Jolie hits him with a phone, which would hurt so fucking bad. Those things are heavy as shit. It's one of them old hotel phones.
It literally rings his bell, Paige. When she hits him with it, it makes the because like that's like it's such an old phone.
Yeah.
It literally had a bell in it.
Yes. And they gave him options of like, if you talk, we don't hurt you. If you don't talk, we take your thumbs. And if you still don't talk, we kill you. But we haven't decided how yet.
Well, and that's when he like sort of like hems and haws. He's like,
right.
Well, why don't you get me something to drink? And then Angelina Jolie takes the phone and punches him in the face with it. And he's like, option A, I'll tell you literally everything. Yeah. Please don't let her hit me with communication metaphors again.
Yes. Avon calling, just like boom, right to the head.
Oh, it's so funny.
But he then takes out the picture because he has it. And he's like, yeah, both your agencies are trying to kill you. So everybody's out to get you. And they're like, why didn't you burn this photo, dipshit? Like, you're trying to be an agent. Like, you're bad at it.
He's like, it's basic skill craft, bro. You suck at this.
You suck at this. But at this point, Angelina Jolie, because she'd be smart, is like, wait, you were bait or you are bait?
Yeah, I liked that turn for her because she was like, fuck, this was all a setup to kill us again.
Yes. Of course, he is bait. His belt has a tracker in it. So they make their way out. They end up in one of the sewers and they're just kind of waiting it out while they all surround the motel and take Adam Brody and then leave. But this is where she's like, well, I have a boat waiting for me in La Paz. He's like, I have a cargo drop in the Atlas Mountains. We could both go our separate ways and be safe and just disappear for the rest of our lives.
I love this scene.
And Brad Pitt's like, no, I want to stay together. Like, I don't care. I'm fighting next to you, because I think he has been in love with her the whole time. I know she has too.
She absolutely has. She's been too defensive to admit it to him.
Yes.
But I think she's been telegraphing it to the audience without him being able to see it. Like when they hung up the phone, she telegraphs it, right?
Right.
So we know she actually does. She just can't bring herself to say it yet. And I love this scene because this is like the emotional core of the scene is like, I bet this scene is like the idea for the movie.
Yeah, sure.
It is like them using like action movie words to talk about like, you could always go on the run from the bad things in your life, or you could stay and like fight and like decide to work on this relationship and, finish it, like work on it together. And because I think you're worth it and I hope you think I'm worth it. It's like that kind of a thing, right?
Right.
And it's all happening in a sewer drain.
In a sewer drain.
Which is so funny to me. I was like, I love this Pennywise scene. It's very sweet.
Yeah, but then we cut to them going to, and we don't really really even know how they get there, but a homemade next to a Costmart, definitely supposed to be a Costco. And the homemade is basically like an IKEA / living spaces kind of situation.
It definitely had IKEA vibes. It was like big furniture store kind of thing.
Yeah. And they kind of like get ready and they prep and he says, I'll see you in the next life, Jane. Likewise, John. And they fight through this home goods store. She throws knives. She gets him in the leg. And we're like, we'll talk about this later.
I mean, it is just like a long action sequence of them killing every hitman who has now like been hired to kill both of them. It is like every Jason Bourne movie.
Right.
Where like all of a sudden every agent from Treadstone is trying to kill Jason Bourne. It's the same thing, but for these two people.
Yeah. And just broken up with, sections of them in the elevator while Girl from Ipanema plays.
Yeah.
Just like very brief. But again, it's all shot kind of close. It's kind of repetitive. We do get to a point where she goes up into the ceiling and she gets shot. He goes to rescue her. They both get shot a lot, but they do have vests on.
Yes.
So they retreat to a tough shed full of mattresses and pillows. And this is where they're like helping each other get ready. It's very sweet. It's the flip side of the 2-minute mission that they went on to get out in Brody.
Right. And it is sort of sweet and sort of like, it sort of reminded me of the Scars scene from Indiana Jones a little bit, because they're like helping each other and like, it is sort of an intimate but not sexual moment necessarily.
Right.
Which I liked. And then I really liked it's like the Butch Cassidy and Sundance like bust out of there and sort of fight for your life kind of moment, although they survive it, unlike Robert Redford and Paul Newman in that movie. But it was similar vibes.
Yeah, and they survive by, again, shooting, like facing each other back to back. The only thing that could have improved it was full penetrative sex. Watch Shoot 'em Up, you guys. Shoot 'em Up is fucking nuts. Anyway, they eventually are the only ones left standing, and we cut to their next marriage counseling appointment where he's like, I'm kind of interested about the progress you've made. And they're like, oh, we're doing great. And like, sometimes you've got to battle through, and we redid the house and ask us the sex question again. 10 times. And that's the movie.
So having seen the movie, having talked about the movie, what do you think about Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
I feel like there are movies like this that I prefer more. And so I think I will return to watching those more than this one. It's all right. It's all right. I feel like my opinion of it has not changed much since the first time I saw it. Yeah. And there's a reason that I didn't watch it in the intervening 20 years. So yeah.
My opinion did change on it in the intervening 20 years, but I think that's because I changed quite a bit in those 20 years. And the action didn't hold me like it once did.
Yeah, that's fair.
I do really like the metaphor of the movie. I think it's a really fun play on like fighting for a relationship in this heightened action movie world. So I sort of like that. I do think the pacing's a bit weird like we talked about, but I'm sure I liked it. I know for a fact I liked it in the moment when I saw it in the theaters, but there's a reason I haven't seen it since then, and I probably won't revisit it again. But it's a fine movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
Yeah.
Anyway, Paige, do you have any fun facts for us?
I do.
Why, it is with your fun facts.
Smith's fun facts. So Brad Pitt was attached to this a lot earlier than Angelina Jolie was, and originally he was supposed to do this with Nicole Kidman.
Ooh, okay.
And honestly, I think Angelina Jolie is a better choice for this.
Me too.
Yeah.
Nicole Kidman would have been fine. I like Angelina Jolie in this.
If you want to watch Nicole Kidman in a role like this, in a really good movie, it's Karen Kusama's, I believe it's called Destroyers, and it's her and Sebastian Stan as undercover DEA agents.
Okay.
And it's really good. Yeah. But so Nicole Kidman dropped out, and so Brad Pitt dropped out because they hadn't found a replacement. But once Angelina Jolie signed on, he returned to the project and agreed to complete it. So,
Okay. All right, Brad.
Eyebrow raised.
Allegedly.
The line where as Angelina Jolie's walking into the first kill that we see in the movie, she answers the Jeopardy question as she walks in.
Yes.
Apparently this was unscripted, and it was just a spur of the moment thing for Angelina Jolie, where they had Jeopardy going on in the background in the scene, and she just answered the question, and they kept it in the movie.
That's awesome. Good for her.
Yep. Brad Pitt left in the middle of shooting this movie for 3 months to shoot Ocean's 12, which is why we actually have a bunch of scenes that are just Angelina Jolie and her coworkers.
Yeah.
Because Brad Pitt wasn't available.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Now, this is actually a really interesting note. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were each paid $20 million. And that is a lot of money, I understand. But this is actually very significant because prior to this point, it was very, very rare for men and women to be paid equal amounts for roles in films. And Angelina Jolie was one of the few people who could command that at the time. This is still an inequity where often when you see movies, the actors are paid higher than the actresses. And some actresses have done a lot to try and gain the ground so that they are paid equitably, but it's still not the standard. So the fact that they did get paid the same means that Angelina Jolie probably bargained her ass off, and good for her girl.
Yeah, get paid what you're worth. That's all based around like bullshit. Like, well, actors have a whole family to support. Like it's all like
stupid.
That whole bullshit 50s vibe that's so dumb and way outdated. Was outdated then.
It's super stupid. And I mean, now here's the thing. People will be paid differently based on their draw, as in like who will come see them in a movie. Like that will dictate who gets paid what, for sure. And that's always probably going to happen. But this marks one of the few times that a woman was paid that much for a movie, and it kind of established a cap. Like it established a point for other people to ask for. There have been a few other women who have commanded that amount and gotten it around this time, and that kind of sets the precedent for modern day. So Adam Brody is wearing a Fight Club t-shirt while they interrogate him, which that's pretty fun.
I didn't realize that, but that is awesome.
In order to get a wider PG-13 audience, they cut a huge amount of the sex scene in this movie, which is wild because we still get a fair amount of it.
We do, yeah.
But maybe this is when they were firing at each other and doing full penetration, like shoot 'em up, and like maybe that's what we missed out on. I don't think it is. But here's what I will say. As much as I want to watch these people have a steamy sex scene, and I fucking do, that would have added to the pacing problems. Like
probably, yeah.
Because it probably would have been at the end of the fight scene.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily think you should have cut the sex scene.
Cut the fighting. Yeah, cut the fighting down to make room for the sex scene. 100%. The shot of the helicopter flying over Bogota at the beginning of the movie is actually a recycled shot from Clear and Present Danger in 1994.
What?
But, yes, but to make it look like it fit in this movie that's being made, 10 plus years later, they had to use CGI to enhance it.
They also made sure you couldn't zoom in and tell it was Harrison Ford in the helicopter.
Right. The actual location of the original shot is Mexico, which bears no resemblance to Bogota. And so they had to then alter the background around it to look like Bogota.
That sounds like a lot of work. I mean, it probably was cheaper than like going and getting that shot in Bogota. I get that. But that sounds like a lot of fucking work for whoever had to do that.
Well, I mean, considering that those helicopter shots are notoriously hard to get in general and expensive to get, it might have been cheaper to do what they did. That's probably why they did it.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure that's why they did it. Yeah.
So the film's original script was writer Simon Kinberg's thesis for his master's in fine arts, which is like really uncommon. I have a script that I shopped that was like my final project in film school.
Yeah.
And that was the one that up until now I had the most meetings on. And it's really rare that the one you write in school gets made. So I think it's kind of funny that this guy's got made.
That's great, though.
Good for him. Originally, Johnny Depp was cast in Brad Pitt's role.
Wow,
but turned it down because he was in the middle of shooting what? Pirates of the Caribbean.
Gotta be. Yeah.
Yeah. And I prefer Brad Pitt in this role 100%. There are other people that I think a Carl Urban would have been amazing in this too, but wasn't famous enough at the time. But Brad Pitt does a great job.
I think he could have at the time done this though. Carl Urban was acting and great at the time.
Yeah.
He just wasn't known. Like he had been in Lord of the Rings pretty much, and that was it.
Yeah. Many of the scenes from the trailer were not in the movie, including a scene of Brad Pitt riding a bike while shooting, hilarious, and Keith David actually being
on screen,
visible in the movie on screen, saying, "Bring in everyone, it's the Smiths." Neither of those end up in this movie. They're not here.
Man.
Now, an alternate Mrs. Smith, while they were considering Johnny Depp and also considering Will Smith. So it was Johnny Depp and Will Smith were up for it. And the Mrs. Smith that they were considering was Catherine Zeta-Jones, based on her role in Entrapment, which, by the way, fucking great movie. So at that point, it was unclear if Brad Pitt would sign on because I guess this was after Nicole Kidman had left.
Yeah, okay.
So there was a brief moment in time when it was a shuffle of other people and then Brad Pitt came back. Vince Vaughn, his character Eddie, turns down a bounty of $400,000 because you won't get out of bed for anything less than $5. However, and this is a quote from Linda Evangelista, who won't wake up for less than $10,000 a day. But that $500 would have been both of them, because then it would have been $8, which is why I think it would have actually been really interesting for him to have been the person calling everyone in.
I mean, because he would have been true when he said, I don't get out of bed for anything over $500,000, anything under $500,000.
Yes. Now, I did mention the original script being the master's project for the writer, but it was based on a short-lived television series from 1996 starring Scott Bakula and Maria Bello. So it is an existing idea that someone then expanded out.
Nice.
Yeah. Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt did rank number 3 on MoviePhone's top 25 sexiest movie couples.
Okay. All right.
Spoiler, I believe number 1 is Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams from The Notebook, if memory serves, because they won awards for it and stuff. When John first enters his office, you can clearly see a black suit, a white shirt, and a red tie, which is the Hitman outfit from the popular video game.
And it very clearly is an homage to it. Yeah.
Yep. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie started dating in real life after working together on this movie. Allegedly after
working together. After, for sure.
And I'll leave you on this one. The tango scene is lifted directly from a classic, True Lies.
I think that a lot of movies like this, specifically like action adventure rom-coms, have tango scenes, or at least dancing scenes. It's like a trope in these movies.
It is. I think True Lies is the first, to be honest with you.
I think Romancing the Stone had a dancing scene. It may not be a tango.
Yeah, but that's kind of a different vibe. Yeah, it's not a tango.
But I mean a dancing scene in general. I think the tango is a very specific True Lies vibe, which we will get to, Paige.
Yes. And those are your fun facts.
Well, thank you for those fun facts, Paige. Let's talk a little bit about box office. What do you think the production budget was for Mr. and Mrs. Smith in 2005?
I'm going to say 80 million, since we know at least 40 million of it went to the actors.
Yeah, so if 40 million went to the actors, another 70 million went towards the production of the movie. So the total budget was $110 million.
It's on the screen. It's on the screen.
The CGI in this movie holds up to this day.
It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah, this does not look like 2005. This looks pretty modern.
It does. It looks great. But if you adjust that $110 million for inflation, that would be $177.1 million today. This movie came out on June 10th, 2005, smash, right at Blockbuster season starting. It was number 1 the week it came out. It beat Madagascar, that was number 2. Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith was number 3. The Longest Yard was number 4. And The Adventures of Shark Boy and Lava Girl in 3D was number 5.
The Taylor Lautner classic.
Paige, what do you think Mr. and Mrs. Smith made in its opening weekend?
Oh, this was the biggest movie around. At the time.
It was number 1 that week, for sure.
It was number
the biggest
1
movie around. Yeah.
I'm going to say this made 60 million its first weekend.
Paige, you're so close. It was actually $50.3 million.
Damn. Yeah,
Yeah, it was in the top 5 for its first 5 weeks.
Yep.
It was technically top 10 for its first 6 weeks.
I think I saw it opening weekend, to be honest with you.
I think I did too.
Yeah.
And then it dropped out of the top 10 pretty quickly, but it was in theaters for 27 weeks. That's like half a year.
Damn.
Anyway.
That's huge. No, nothing stays in theaters that long anymore.
No, it was literally in theaters from June 10th, 2005 to December 9th, 2005. Oof. That was its last weekend, so it probably actually was out of theaters on the 10th or 11th. But Paige, what do you think it brought in domestically in the box office?
Domestically, I bet this brought in about 180 million.
Shit, Paige. It was 186.3. Very good guess.
Boom! Crushing it.
So if you remember, the budget was $110 million. It definitely made money at 186. It also brought in a little bit internationally, that total being $299.7 million internationally, guys. It made so much more money overseas. This made almost $500 million, which means Vince Vaughn almost got out of bed for it. It made $486.1 million worldwide. That's a shitload of money.
That's so much money.
It made tons of money. If you adjust that for inflation, that would be $782.9 million today.
Well, and that's why Angelina Jolie can ask for $20 fucking million, because they spent $20 million on her and $20 million on Brad, and they got $400 back. That's why you get to ask for that money, pretty much.
I'd have done it for points on the back end. end. But
I hope they got points on the back
me too.
end.
And honestly,
I bet they did.
I know. I was about to say,
did.
I bet the deal was $20 million, and then after a certain level, like after production budget recoup, they get 20 points on the back end or something like that. I would not be shocked. But that's where the money is. Got to get that back end, baby.
Well, it's only where the money is if the movie is this level of successful.
Oh, yes, that's what I mean.
You know?
Like if you're Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie in this movie, this is going to be a hit.
Right.
In 2005, it's a hit.
Yeah.
It could have been way worse than this and made money.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Anyway, that's your box office. Paige, do you want to hit us with the romance scale?
Sure. Our romance scale is a scale from 1 to 4. I am going to give this a 1 because I'm not 100% that they're not going to still kill each other.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's a 1 for me. Like, if we're going to answer the question of are they still together? Yeah, probably, but I don't think they should be. But what are you going to give the roar scale, Paige?
See, okay. I'm going to give it a 2.
Yeah, me too.
On the roar scale. Especially for that early scene when she's on his lap, I was like, damn, I didn't remember this part of the movie at all. And okay.
They do have a lot of chemistry. I mean, like...
Oh, absolutely.
He is full-on penetration, that fight scene, right? Oh, no, wait, that's Shoot 'em Up.
I mean, no, that's Clive Owen. That's Clive Owen and Monica Bellucci. And
you've just brought it up so much, I feel like I've seen it already.
Oh, you should, man. It's a wild movie. He kills so many people with a carrot. Like, Shoot 'em Up fucking slaps.
Listen, in the words of Bruno Mars, there's only one carrot and they all got to share it. But I don't have time to watch other movies. If I'm not working, I'm sleeping. So, like, I don't have time right now. But
someday when we have an action movie podcast, I'm absolutely making us watch Shoot 'em Up and Crank.
I would love to have the time to do that. Anyway, so Paige, this week I made you watch Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Next week, as we continue our capping off of summer with action, adventure, romance, we will be watching the 2012 Chris Pine, Tom Hardy, Reese Witherspoon, action, adventure, romance, This Means War. I can't wait. I remember seeing this movie in theaters, and I remember enjoying it, and then remember nothing about it. So I can't wait to revisit it, because I haven't seen it since 2012 when it came out. So your homework for next week is to watch This Means War from 2012, and then check back for that episode.
Todd, do you have any reviews for us?
I do. This week I'm going to read a Spotify comment from our most recent episode, which was our Dumpling episode. This comment comes from Z-Star with 2 R's. And they say, I first watched Dumpling in the 7th grade and it became my guilty pleasure movie. Thank you guys for covering it, even though I don't really think it's a rom-com. And Z-Star, I think we sort of agree with you, but we still loved the movie. It's amazing.
I just had a moment where I was like, oh my God, what would my life have been like if I had seen Dumpling in the 7th grade?
Right?
That is wild. That's nuts. I was full ass 30. Oh, yikes. All right.
It happens to us all, Paige. That time thing. I also have a 5-star Apple review from A. Myers, and they say, best pod around.
Thank you.
Love this pod so much. Paige and Todd make me laugh till I cry. Mikey did too, and I'm really sad he left, but I'm wishing him the best on his journey.
Yes.
From the tangents to the inside jokes, the fun facts, the podcast has everything you need to turn your day around. You guys got me to laugh through some really difficult days, and for that, I can't thank you enough. So A. Myers and Z-Star, thank you so much for those awesome 5-star reviews and Spotify comments. We appreciate it. And if you want me to read your Spotify comment or 5-star review, leave us a 5-star review or Spotify comment and I'll do just that. So yeah, if you guys like this show and want to hear our other show where we talk about horror movies, that is The Horror Virgin. That's the only other podcast I am on, but Paige is also on Cult Podcast, which you can find at Cult Podcast. And you can find us on social media. I am at Todd J. Awesome, literally everywhere. Paige is at Paige Wesley on Instagram.
No, it's at Rampage Wesley on Instagram and TikTok, at Paige Wesley on Twitter.
That's right. All right. So that's where you can find Paige. If you want to find the show, we are at Romancing the Pod Show, right?
Yep. Romancing Pod Show on Twitter.
Well, and Instagram, right?
And Instagram, but it's show SHO because character limit. If you start typing Romancing the Pod, it'll come up.
It'll definitely come up on Instagram. I don't know about Twitter because I haven't posted on Twitter in a hot ass minute. So like, who knows? But that is where you can find more of us. So yeah, guys, give us a follow. Support the show any way you can. We'd love it.
Smash that like button.
Hell yeah.
That's going to be it for us, you guys. I'm Paige.
And I'm Todd.
And you complete us.
Murder-pletion.
Stab, 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 stab.
Bye. If this was actually happening in real life, it would be terrible, nerds.